Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm Jessica Goldberg, and I'm so glad you're here for today's fireside chat, Future Ready, Equipping Marketing and MBD Teams to Navigate and Leverage Emerging Technologies. This series is brought to you by Society 54 and really inspired by the work we're doing with Inform54. This is our platform designed specifically for legal marketing and business development teams who want to harness data and technology to work smarter, move faster, and really show impact more clearly. If you're new to Inform54, it's a dynamic real-time reporting and project management platform that helps teams track what matters, collaborate more efficiently, and surface insights that fuel better strategy. So whether you're evaluating your current tech stack or building out a more data-driven culture, Inform54 was built to support and scale that transformation. And that's really the heart of Tech Tuesday, candid, practical conversations with forward-thinking leaders about how we can move from just managing information to activating it, using tech to make better decisions faster. And so today's conversation is a perfect example of that. I'm thrilled to be joined by Paige Bowser, Director of Marketing Technology at Jackson Lewis. Paige brings deep experience aligning data, technology, and strategy in ways that shift behavior and drive results. She's a well-respected voice in our space, having contributed to Law 360 and speaking at legal industry events. And she's ultimately passionate about helping teams adopt tech with purpose and agility. Today, we're going to be talking about how MBD teams can evaluate emerging tools, roll them out intentionally, and really build a future-ready culture that actually sticks. So no slides, no lectures, just a candid conversation with practical takeaways. Please feel free to drop questions into the chat anytime during today's session, and we're going to get to as many as we can. And we'll share the recording afterwards so that you can revisit the discussion. So with that, please grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive in. Paige, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I thought we'd get started more at the 30,000 foot level here. So when you think about the idea of being future ready, what does that really mean to you in the context of legal marketing and BD teams?
That's a great question. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to spend a little time with everybody today. 30,000 foot, you have to be able to adjust as needed. We all know that AI has not only enhanced and increased the speed of implementing new tech, it also has kind of turned all of our traditional thinking upside down. We have to be able to actually adapt in a much quicker time frame to implement technology, to leverage it, to look at the data, and be able to make a shift if we have to. So being flexible, being aware, and just staying up to date with things that are working great and then things that could be better and really focusing there.
That's actually a perfect segue. You're talking about staying up to date. When technology is evolving so quickly, how do you personally stay on top of all the new tools and trends and platforms? I know I find it overwhelming, and I'm sure a lot of in-house people who bear the weight of that for their firms do too. How do you make sure you're evolving alongside of that rather than playing catch up all the time?
It's a challenge. I mean, you can't hide the fact that there is thousands of different technologies out there. A lot of them could do something similar to one another in some way, shape, or form. So I really try to prioritize what does the firm currently have, making sure I'm updated and staying on top of existing technology. Are we leveraging it how we should? Are we leveraging it to its fullest capacity? Could we change a process to make it work better? Or is the technology something we need to evaluate? Then I focus on the timeline and contracts we have in place with the existing technology. If you have a CRM that's not set to expire for 3 years of a contract, don't spend a ton of time right now looking at new CRMs. Everything is going to change in 6 months, let alone 3 years. So really prioritize your time and your energy to look at the technology that you can have the biggest impact with, you can actually make a change on, and really just try to focus your efforts in a rolling basis instead of a everything at once, there's too many things to keep track of. I get emails twice, 3 times a week from different vendors that either go through my CMO or through me or through someone else on the team that's like, we can do this thing. I'm like, great. Let me do a quick Google search, see if I can get the gist of what this is, see if it could fit in our stack. If so, where, and then really decide if I want to keep investing time to learn more about it, analyze it, demo it, etc.
That's a great suggestion. And I love that angle of following your contract terms because I feel like sometimes we all just get caught up into the pressure of like, oh gosh, what's the latest trend? I just need to know about all of these things at once. But when you're talking about contract terms, how are you actually managing and seeing a visual for that? Like, do you have a process or a tool so that you kind of know on a rolling basis of what's due when?
Right now, no designated tool. I'm using Excel and NetDocs and looking up in my email quite a bit. But I've actually created kind of a monthly timeline of the overlap of contracts in the department that I manage. So I'm actually able to see in there what is the timeline of when something would expire so that I can also know how to backdate into a date of expiration if I'm looking to replace a technology. I've been doing this now. I'm analyzing our full tech stack for the department, and I've received feedback on, I think, every technology we use. And they're like, you should look at this. You should look at this. What about this one? What about this one? And I'm having to kind of rein it in and say, like, that's a great idea, but we really need to focus over here first. We have to fix this problem, and our contract is coming up. Now is our moment, or we can't do it for 3 years. And that tends to kind of resonate with people. They're like, oh yeah, this could be better, but this one's really bad. So let's focus over there. So I use my calendar religiously. I set reminders roughly 6 months out from an expiration if it's something that's not going to need a lot of implementation time. CRM is like 2 years out and then a year out, and keeping that one in mind. So it depends on your implementation time if you're looking to really evaluate, but calendar invites and that Excel sheet showing the overlap is really how I've been trying to manage the list.
I think that's so smart. I think, and it's a good reminder for all of us because as tech focused as we get, there's always going to be a place for our Excel spreadsheets.
Oh yeah.
Um, okay, well, along the lines of organization, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, we hear a lot about tech roadmaps. So, what is your approach to building a tech roadmap that evolves with your firm goals or aligns with your firm goals?
Yeah, so kind of similar to how you analyze and look at different technologies to make sure that you're looking at the right thing at the right time is figuring out what are the top priorities for the firm and figuring out what you can currently meet and what you can't. And what those can't, the ones that can't be met are really the ones where you can leverage the technologies to decide, is it the technology we have? Is it the structure of the firm and the department? Is it a process problem? And you can really try to start getting into the issue. And if it's a technology problem, you switch the technology. That's the solution. If it's a process and technology problem, you can start somewhere and then kind of say, here's as far as we can go with what we have. But if we got this other technology instead, we could actually go here. So figuring out how to leverage what you have in every way you can, but being aware that not technology is not going to fix everything. We still are people. It's not going to solve all the problems. It's not going to fix the people problems, as I say. So figuring out how to do what you can, being aware of where your struggles are, and just being transparent about the struggles. It really helps with leadership to understand, okay, they're making a conscious decision to stop at this point, whereas the technology is fine for now, but knowing in, 5 years, we're going to need to reevaluate everything.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that helps us in our roles routinely is to kind of hear about other people's successes. So I'm wondering if you have any recent tech initiatives that stand out as a success for you. And can you tell us a little bit about what made it work so well?
Yeah, so I've got two that kind of come to mind. One of them is really process driven. It is not focused on the tech. It was, how do I create something using what I have? So we started rolling out a new product of ours called Check It, and we had zero plan of how to onboard these users, how to communicate with them, who they should be, etc. So I used Smartsheet because that's a firm tool that I have access to with no additional budget, no additional training needed. And I went in and tinkered around for quite a while, but I built out a dashboard and kind of a collection of sheets that are basically fancy Excel sheets feeding a dashboard. But I was able to use that technology to establish a process of how we can hand off our pieces to IT when it's their turn. And then when IT's done, hand it back to us to actually complete the task. So it was all process focused. I knew what technology I had and I just leaned into it as much as possible. Was it a great process? It worked. Was it all manual? It was, which was the unfortunate part. So, that was phase one. We're in phase two now, and we are almost fully automated. It's been, 3 years in the making, but I used the tech we had and really figured out how do I get us started? And then knowing I can always go back, look at it again and say, okay, how can I make this better? The other one is a welcome email series we've been doing at the firm. We have a very small subset, not small, but a subset of our clients that are EPLI clients. They come into the firm through an insurer. So they don't typically choose us, they are assigned us. And that's a different experience for a lot of law firms. So we have taken that moment to say, okay, how can we communicate who we are, how else we can help them, and how we can help them right now. We started when the attorney wanted to put probably 20 links in one email that said, here's everything you could ever need. Sign up here. Here's some events. We can be your people. If you have a question about billing, email over here. Way too much. But it was an attorney-driven process. So we started where the attorney wanted to start. And we said, let's reevaluate in 6 months, see what the data tells us, and then we can go from there. 6 months later, as expected, the data said nobody scrolls past the first 2 clicks. And we came up with a plan to do a 3-part series. Same content, but broken out into 3 emails once a week.
Okay.
We were able to use that, start implementing that process. And 6 months later, we had a 94% increase in our success of subscription rate and open and click-through rate.
Wow.
So small group of contacts, but a clear indication that using what you've got, figuring out how it works and what doesn't, using the data to tell you what works and what doesn't, and then being open to reevaluate. That's really the hardest part a lot of times. But we have been able to do that now for, I think we're going on 3 years. We've been through probably 15 iterations of that series emails, but we've seen huge success, and it's now become a template for other departments of the firm that have come back and said, we want to do something similar.
That's phenomenal. And it's so fascinating to be able to see a project follow through like that from conception all the way down 3 years down the road to the point where you've perfected it to that level. So that obviously was a longer term situation. What about some quicker wins? Because I feel like not everybody has the time or the resources to devote to that as much as we would all like to, or maybe we can follow 1 or 2 initiatives like that. But do you have any like kind of low lift tech solutions that are often offering real value, but maybe overlooked that could do that quick win?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to really just trying to take a step back and say, like, what is my core goal I'm trying to achieve? And figuring out how to work off of that. So my team has been using Smartsheet for self-management of just regular tasks. It's like, I have to do this twice a week. I need to do this once a month. This is quarterly, etc. As we all imagine, that's like a list of 20 things for the team. Keeping track of them in a Word doc is not possible. So I set up a quick Smartsheet, but now they're retiring Smartsheet at our firm. So everything I've set up, I have to go, okay, time out. Let me take a step back. What's something I can do instead that still achieves a similar result, but also asking for feedback from my team before I just make an executive decision? So I asked them, like, what works, what doesn't? What do we like? What do we not like? And then I have played around with, I think, 4 options that exist in the firm. One of them being Excel, one of them being SharePoint, one of them being Teams. And then the other, I think, was just calendar invites. So very basic, but I tested a few of them across the board. I just said, does this give me the repeat function I need? Can I mark it complete? Can I assign it to someone? If it couldn't do that, I just said, okay, move to the next one. They can pretty much all do that. So then I had to figure out what works for my team. So I took their feedback and really said, okay, here's where I'm thinking. And before I invested too heavily, I took it back to the team again and said, okay, I think this is where I'm landing. but I'm not actually the one doing it day to day. So help me fix this process. So we've reevaluated process, we've reevaluated the tech, and we've used something that's fairly straightforward with some more baseline technologies to say, I need a SharePoint list or I need a calendar invite that's a repeat on my calendar.
Love that. That's great. I think that's something everybody could apply in any capacity of what they're doing. So thank you for that. That's a really helpful tip. We've talked a lot about checking in with your team and like how you're trying to figure out the products that work. How do you measure success really when it comes to tech adoption? And are there any specific metrics or moments that tell you this is actually working right now?
So it's hard because every firm is different, every technology is different, and a lot of the things we do with data don't have a clear success or fail indicator. Adoption is obviously an easy metric to say, like 80% adoption, we consider that a win. That's a fairly straightforward one. Adoption doesn't always mean success though. So I actually like to roll out the tool or implement a new process around it or whatever it is. And then I actually do follow-ups with the people that are supposed to be using it and say, like, are you using it? Usually do my homework before I get on the call, so I know the answer. But are you using it? Is it helpful? Are you finding what you need? Is there something different that you're looking for? And really just trying to get them to talk to me about their goal and not about the tech per se, to see if they're actually starting to try and embed that in their workflow. If the answer is no, then you really get to the like, what are you trying to do? And if it's yes, it's great. What else can I do? I also have created a relationship with multiple secretaries at the firm, and I actually will go to them instead of their attorney and say, hey, have you heard if so and so is using this? Did they tell you something about this implementation or this product? There's one particular assistant who is not shy, and I love it because the product is not my product. So if the attorneys hate it, my job is to figure out how to facilitate what they're trying to do, not to invest so hard into this one technology and not actually meet the goals of the firm. So I
Right.
don't take it personal. I look at it as a moment to take a step back, reevaluate. Again, look at the tech we have. Is it the right tech? Is it something that's a workaround? And really just kind of keep in touch with those contacts on the ground. I check in with her probably every month or so. She's high up, so she's got some attorneys that are not scared to hesitate and tell her if something is great or something is terrible. I appreciate the terrible stuff just as much, if not more, as the good stuff, because that's where you actually get to keep growing, learning, enhancing what you're doing.
I love that. I think those are hidden gold mines within the firm when you can find a contact like that and really use them for that information and that honest feedback.
Yeah.
I think what you're hinting at here is a little bit of culture too, though, along with trust. So really, you can have the best tool in the world, but without the right mindset, it's not going to matter. How do you go about building a culture that's open to your tech experimentation and change?
Every firm is different. I've learned that the hard way. When I first joined Jackson Lewis, I had experience rolling out a CRM to a firm, and I did a full year rollout pretty much by myself, one-on-one training across the board. It was a very long year, but I learned a lot, but it worked. We had high engagement, we had good success, we had good data, which I know is mostly unheard of, but it worked there. So I came here hoping, thinking it was going to work the same, and it did not.
Oh,
I've done numerous trainings exactly how I've done before. I've done variations of those trainings based off of feedback. And the engagement and implementation here is just not the same because the firm doesn't need it to be the same. And that was something that's taken me a while to kind of circle around to, is like a CRM at one firm doesn't have the same goals as a CRM at another firm, even if it's the same thing.
interesting.
So being able to really take that step back again, not take it personal, not say like this worked in the past, why isn't this working? If the culture is not there to say you have to use this, then you're really up against the battle of why should they use this? And that's the hard one, is I'm going to change your process to try and get you to use something you've never used to hopefully give you value.
Right.
There's a bunch of ifs in there that typically one of them falls apart. And so being open to, I'm not trying to achieve the same goal. I'm trying to achieve the firm goal, which is, surface the data that they're looking for at the times they're looking for it, identify the pitfalls, and really focus in to make sure that it works for this firm, not every other firm.
Right. That's really great advice. And then sometimes we encounter a situation where we've got the general firm top-down approval on something, or we've got the culture there, but then we've got to work with the attorneys themselves, sometimes who are extremely skeptical. Let's face it, we've all been there, and we've got to take them along for the ride when we're rolling out new tools. How do you do that most effectively, or what are your secrets for that internally?
Again, it's knowing your firm. So that's part of it. Having that top-down input really does help. Obviously, attorneys like to listen to whoever is paying their bills, as we all do. So keeping those in mind, but really trying to find a few of your shining stars, the ones that have come to you in the past and said, I'm trying to do this. Using them as kind of your starting point to develop a process. Finding a few of the younger attorneys, more associate style, who are on the path to be partner, bringing them in and saying, you're not at the same level yet, but here's the process we're thinking. And really keep communication open with active attorneys and upcoming attorneys, excuse me, to create that dialogue where they're not scared to come to you and say, like, this is broken. Obviously
Right.
not ideal what you would hear, but it's helpful to know. And it gives you that chance to kind of connect the dots, build that trust, build that rapport where you're getting true, honest feedback. The other thing is making sure that you're okay not knowing everything. We don't know everything. We're never going to know everything. I've been in a CRM for over 10 years and I know I don't know everything of it. So being okay saying that is really a way to build that trust and the respect. I don't say, I have no idea unless I follow it with, but I'll find out and let you know.
Mhm.
And then I follow through on my finding out and letting them know. So it's a lot of working through the bumps, being open and transparent. Like, it's technology, it's never going to be perfect. That's okay. Our jobs are to figure out how to make it work the best it can for what that person or that firm needs at that time, and being willing to adjust when it's not.
Absolutely. That's great advice for all of us. I just want to take a quick pause here and remind all the attendees, feel free to type in any questions you have into the chat, and we can answer any of those as we're talking and as we're going and add those in. So please don't be bashful about doing that. Paige, I know you're obviously a very methodical person from what you're telling us. Was there ever a tool or trend you were kind of skeptical about at first, but then it turned out to be a game changer for you?
Yes, AI. I have been very hesitant with AI, which is kind of counterintuitive when people hear that my title is marketing technology, and AI is the hot buzzword. It's very hard to relinquish some of the control, which is part of my problem. But part of it also is I didn't find the right use cases to find it helpful. So I had to really start practicing and dedicating time to what I just say is like playing around, figuring it out, and finding the moments where it actually is helpful for me and knowing it can't do it all. So I had a huge data set I pulled out of our email marketing platform. It was like 20,000 rows. And I wanted to know what is the best, like what was the most opened time of these 20,000 people. And it was like 2 p.m. I was like, great, that's all I needed. It took me 2 minutes to upload a document and ask that question. Whereas in Excel, I would have had to manipulate the data, turn it around, find some numbers, do all that. So that was my big first moment of like, oh, this could be helpful in my day to day. And now I use it a lot more. Um, I use it to draft emails all the time, especially to firm leadership. I'll just put in my thoughts in the very rough way that they initially come out, and then it helps me bring it in. I also used it this week for a product requirement document for IT. So I was able to Google, what does this typically look like? to make sure I was meeting what they would expect, use the document to help me formalize what I'm trying to do. And it took me an hour.
That's great.
So, just being open to dedicating the time to learn it. And then it's not going to be perfect. So adjusting it, teaching it, helping it figure out what does work, what doesn't, and then figuring out for you, where does it help you and where does it not?
I think that's the secret because it's so interesting. The more people you talk to about AI, everyone's got something they're using it a little differently for, but it's just so interesting how everybody's adopting it into what their needs are in their role once you identify what that is. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about if a firm, I know there's some folks on the call who may just be starting to modernize their tech stack. Not everybody's extremely sophisticated. We're all playing a little bit of catch up in different areas too. So what do you view as step one when you're wanting to modernize your tech stack?
Figure out what your top goal is for the firm and for the department. Um, you can have a goal of what seems very straightforward and simple. And then when you start digging into it to say, how do we actually do that? It's way more complicated. So, how do we send a welcome email to our clients? Sounds simple. It's not. You need to know who they are. You need to know what their emails are. You need to know when they became a client. You need to know how to communicate with them. Is it Outlook? Is it something else? How do you do that at scale is a different story. So really just trying to figure out what is your goal and then digging into it to say, what are some of the key points in this goal? Then you can back into a technology that can help support that. Going at it from a tech to make it work for something you're trying to do is much harder. It creates a lot of those like workaround situations. I have plenty of them set up here. And it's possible, but it's honestly harder, especially if you are at the point of setting it up. Now is your time to really think, what is the current goal? But then also saying, okay, I think I figured out what technology we need. Will it work in 5 years when they figure out that this works? And then they ask me for something bigger. And just trying to
Absolutely.
figure out how to scale. You won't know all the answers, obviously, but just keeping that in mind too, of as you're evaluating what's the current request and need, and then what's the long-term implications of achieving that, but also opening up kind of that can of worms to show them what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, speaking of stacks, we have a question from Riley. I am putting together our firm's AI stack across all departments. What are your thoughts on creating buy-in with attorneys and other staff?
I tend to like to start with the staff versus the attorneys, because if the assistant, it kind of goes back to the opposite direction of if something's not working, they're going to tell their assistant. If the assistant says it is working, they're going to tell their attorney, and they're going to see that improvement of improved and more consistent behavior or results from their own personal assistant. So they've already got a good rapport with their person. They can use that, and that's your moment to say, this could make your life easier to draft an email. Like I said,
Right.
that's where I use it a lot, and it's really easy. And you can say, be more formal, be more casual, but it creates kind of that behavior where you can start implementing that across the board. They're going to start sharing that with their attorney and saying, like, this was AI. It took me 30 seconds. Whereas before it was going to take me, 20 minutes plus your review. So just trying to find again those easy wins. And I tend to go from the staff up because they are willing to share a lot like attorneys are willing to share. And they have that relationship built. So you're not trying to build that while you're doing it.
Right, absolutely. I think too, sometimes the staff is a little bit more forgiving, which
Yes,
is
that's a really
interesting.
good point. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to close with one final question. If attendees walk away remembering one thing from today's conversation, what do you think it should be?
It's okay for something to not work. We all have to
Very
learn.
important.
That's how you learn. So it may not work at the beginning. It doesn't mean that it's not the right thing, not the right plan, not the right approach. It just means that you can take a step back and reevaluate. So keep reevaluating things, even if they appear to be working. When you get a breather, take that step back and say, does it still work? Does this still meet the goals of the firm? and for my
Absolutely.
team.
Absolutely. Great advice. Well, Paige, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your insight today. This has been such an energizing and practical conversation. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for spending part of your day with us. We hope you're leaving with some fresh ideas and strategies for how your team can navigate this fast-changing legal tech landscape. And if today's conversation sparked any ideas for how your team can better track, manage, or demonstrate the impact of your work, we'd love to show you a bit about what we're building with Inform 54. It's a purpose-built platform that helps legal marketing and MBD teams turn information really into action. And we're seeing some really exciting results with firms across the country. You're welcome to reach out to me directly or just keep an eye out for our follow-up email with today's recording. And it's also going to include a link to schedule a demo if you'd like to learn more. So we've got more Tech Tuesday sessions coming up soon, so please stay tuned for what's next. And until then, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.